Good morning, TikTok. Part 6 of how in just 3 days now, the Sacramento Sheriff's Department will be coming to lock me out of a home that I have lived in for the past 23 years and how I got here. I watched a few of my videos and I think I left a little bit of information out which will lead to later information, so I want to go back. I didn't talk much about moving my child to San Juan Unified School District, the third school district, after moving them from Folsom Cordova Unified School District to Sacramento City Unified School District to the third school district, which was called San Juan Unified School District, under an online school program, which I thought would then be able to help me provide at least an education for my child while giving them some of the supports that they needed. And what I mean by supports, the things that I was asking for in the IEP, the individualized education plan, were, a learning environment that would be conducive to helping him concentrate, helping him get the information he needed. So when I moved my child to San Juan Unified School District and they had an online school called Visions in Education, I thought that it would be able to help me get the supports that I needed, in addition to helping with some of the behavioral intervention services that I couldn't afford. Because, like I said, I had no job, I had no car. I still have no job and no car. And so when I moved my child to Visions in Education, I continued, as I stated, to advocate for the services that I was trying to get. Visions in Education, San Juan Unified School District, was the final straw. And that is the school that the Office of Administrative Hearings ordered to test my child appropriately, because at that point, they were beyond the age of 16 and needed additional testing. When you have a disorder and disability, there's a test that children are to have once they are at the age of 16, which should determine their ability to be successful in college and life skills. So once that was determined that the school was to test my child, they, again, jumped through all kind of hoops not to do it. And I persisted and persisted. Finally, they hired a specialist who had just gotten her credential 2 weeks prior to testing my child. They wouldn't take the information from a doctor with a degree and the diagnosis. They hired this woman who, for lack of a better term, had just gotten her degree. She, wanted me to send my information about my son's testing to a pizza parlor that I guess she owned. It was a very weird situation. So the school and I went back and forth about her credentials, and finally she gave a partial test to my child, but then used most of the testing time to drill me about not needing an IEP. Only a 504 plan would follow them into college, and I should be willing to accept a 504 plan. So needless to say, the testing was cut short because she was not there to educate me or convince me of what I wanted. She was there to test my child, and obviously she had an ulterior motive. So the testing never completed with San Juan Unified School District. I continued with the Office of Administrative Hearings to attempt to let them know how the testing had gone and that it wasn't success. Again, the Office of Administrative Hearings had made their ruling, and as I stated previously, they had moved on. They, again, didn't want to hear much about what wasn't happening and all of that. So I continued to give my child the services that I thought that they needed. I had enrolled them in martial arts. I was giving them counseling services. At the time, I was giving them counseling services through my employer-sponsored insurance. Once I no longer had insurance, counseling became very difficult for me to provide because it was something that I would have to pay for $120, $125 a session out of my own pocket and how could I do that with no income? So again, I provided the quiet environment, the music while listening. I taught my child cooking classes. I did all of these things that I could do to help my own child while they were in the home, while still having visions and education as the learning piece of it. I still persisted with Visions, and each year, the next year came when Visions in Education was not willing to do anything about the special education services that I was requesting. So the next year came, and they again asked me to sign a contract that would put my child in the general education population and forego special education services. I refused to sign that contract because everything I had been fighting for was for my child to receive the supports they needed. And signing a general education contract at that point would have just negated everything that I had fought for many years to try to get for my child. So I refused to sign it. I moved forward into the next school year, and San Juan Unified School District had a back to school night. I attended, we talked, met the teachers, all of these things. They sent emails over about vouchers and things that the children would be receiving upon the first day of school. And on the first day of school, San Juan Unified School District unenrolled my child from public school, which again, weird move after I've attended back to school night. I got all the emails meeting the teachers, talking about this. But on the first day, my child could not get into any of their online classes. My child emailed his teacher. Teacher responded, "We'll get back to you." And so once they had gotten back to me, they alerted me that my child was no longer enrolled in Visions in Education in San Juan Unified School District because I refused to sign an admittance contract, which is for everyone. It was terminology that they were using to state that I didn't go with what they wanted me to. And I knew I wasn't going to sign a new contract stating that my child would be in the general education population. So that led me to homeschooling my child. And I had to come up with a plan very, very quickly because, like I said, on the first day of school, my child was unenrolled. So it took me a little while to get it together, put together some classes and information for my child, and start teaching them at home. Because, like I said, what else could I do at that point? I add this piece because I think it's very crucial to the rest of my story as I get into later parts where I talk about estrangement from my children and how that came about. Because as I went through each of the school districts from Folsom Cordova Unified School District to Sacramento City Unified School District, then to San Juan Unified School District, I continue to advocate and fight. The whole time, my children are in the background watching as I continue to, try to get services which should have come more easily. I have to say that during this whole process, I was never just allowed to be just my son's mother. I was always the educator, the enforcer of the rules, the nutritionist, the chauffeur, the teacher, never just the mother. And so it took a huge toll on me and my children's relationship, a lot of this. And so once I started homeschooling my son because he was put out of the public school system, the relationship started to grow stranger and stranger because, again, I needed to make sure classes were being met, information was being received. All of these things were being performed to a level where my son could still get the education that he needed. I'm going to pause here.